So we're all here. We'll go ahead and any actions taken in closed session. And I think we have the Chancellor reading out actions in closed session.
So before that, let me read the welcome to the start of the session. Good evening and welcome to our Zoom board meeting of the South Orange County Community College District Board of Trustees. This is our fourth Zoom webinar and we're becoming more comfortable navigating this platform. Please be advised that everyone participating via this Zoom webinar has been muted. Trustees TJ Prendergast, Tim Jamal, James Wright, David Lang, Barbara J., Marcia Milchiker, Terry Witt-Rydell, and student trustee Rose Esfandiari have been designated as panelists. All attendees are able to view the meeting and may be unmuted when asked to speak. Attendees may also communicate via chat feature with Vice Chancellor Gable, who is the host of the meeting. Now I will read a public report of actions taken during closed session. On a 7-0 vote regarding claim number 585206, the board in closed session voted to issue a notice of rejection of claim pursuant to Government Code Section 913. The governing board further authorizes the chancellor or designee to issue any appropriate notices.
All right, so next we have the invocation by Trustee Lang and pledge by Marcia Milchiker. So if everyone please rise with their computer again.
We are grateful for the many blessings we enjoy and give thanks to all those who provide us with the services we enjoy each and every day, including the police, fire departments, and members of the military. However, in this critical time for our country, we especially give thanks to those in health services, doctors, nurses, retirement home operators and employees, and all others who provide critical care to maintain the health of those in suffering and try and prevent the spread of this disease. We pray that more lives will be spared from the ravages of the current pandemic and offer our condolences to all the families, friends, and loved ones who have suffered thus far.
Okay, thank you. Marcia?
Please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag of our great country. And the flag is in the district office there, so you can face towards that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, next we have, and again, if we can get the shared screen to kind of scroll up to where we're at. I have it on my iPad, but for the public, it might be good. Next, we have any requests for public comments?
There are none.
There are none. All right, we'll move on to oral reports, and we'll start with the return of board reports. Out of reverence, I will call first on Marcia Milchiker.
I'd love to acknowledge and applaud our incredible professors for moving all of their classes to 100% online classes in record time. With their help, I'm so proud that our students are thriving under these difficult conditions. Also, I'm so proud that we provided hardware to all of our students who needed them to be able to take these classes. And sincere thanks to employees who are working on site now. You are our heroes also. I served on a statewide trustee committee these last few months. We created a webinar for trustees every Thursday, and I helped to create a poll regarding the best practices for virtual board meetings for trustees following the Brown Act regulations. I researched the governor's executive orders and presented best practices for trustees in utilizing Zoom, which almost all districts are using right now. I recommend these weekly webinars to all of our trustees, and CCLC sends out a link to these recorded meetings soon after each meeting. I actually got to know many hardworking trustees all over the state while I worked with them, and thought that was a really good opportunity for all of us. The Orange County Community College Legislative Task Force has been meeting virtually every month as well. The 4 chancellors, 4 trustees, and 4 government relations representatives from all 4 Orange County Community College districts are almost always there. At these meetings, federal updates and state updates are always popular, as well as how each district is currently responded to COVID-19. Our district will be leading the task force starting in July 9th, 2 p.m. to be exact. A good start would be sharing challenges, sharing victories, sharing fiscal resources, sharing outcomes. For example, the Coast Community College District's experiences with their new housing facility, as well as shared legislative challenges for our district, which we always deal with. Of course, I attended all of the virtual interviews for the IVC presidency. I'm looking forward to approving of Dr. John Hernandez on tonight's agenda. He's a very impressive individual, and I look forward to working with him. Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll go to Trustee Jay.
I'd like to start my board report with the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Community Leadership and Service, given to Lisa Kennedy Greenberg, President of the Board of Governors of the IVC Foundation. Lisa worked tirelessly for 2 years to help revise Title V, that's the Auxiliary Reimbursement Regulation, as it relates to the California Community College Foundations. This change will help every auxiliary foundation in the state. Congratulations, Lisa, on your wonderful award. The IVC Foundation distributed over $100,000 in emergency funds to more than 200 students and employees since the COVID-19 outbreak began. Great job, IVC Foundation. Also, IVC Foundation has 5 new endowment scholarships since the team has been working from home in the last 3 months. The college graduations have to be virtual and were fantastic. So much hard work and creativity went into these ceremonies. Thanks for everyone's unselfish hard work and working so closely together. The national anthem sung by the individual Saddleback College students and then put together was phenomenal. Lots of creativity, new technology. I want the professors, administrators, and technicians to know how impressed and amazed I was with this number. Congratulations to Emily Quinlan for being named the Orange County Teacher of the Year. And congratulations to Cindy Viscachill for receiving the IVC Athletic Ann L. McFarland Award. I'm done.
Okay. Trustee Lang.
Yes, just a couple of brief comments. I also had the privilege of listening in on the session where Lisa Greenberg was awarded the certificate by the Chancellor. What a well-deserved honor. Again, congratulations to her. The only other thing, a comment that I wanted to make was that I think that here in California, we've been reasonably cautious about reopening. And I would encourage us to continue to move slow and carefully so that we prevent this disease from recurring again here in California in a significant way like it has in so many other places. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Wright.
Due to the COVID-19, both Irvine Valley College and Saddleback College offered a virtual commencement for the 2020 graduates. The virtual commencement not only included a conferring of the degrees, but speeches and special remarks from administrators, faculty, and board of trustees. On May 28th, the virtual commencement ceremony on the Irvine Valley College website celebrated the graduating class of 2020. They had a number of associate degrees and certificates of achievement. At Saddleback College, they had their 51st commencement ceremony. It was held this year on Friday, June the 12th. The ceremony was made available as a live stream so that graduates and their families, friends, and college community could all watch together. Also, they had awarded a number of associate degrees and certificates. I wanted to just, again, let you know that on May 28th, the South Orange County Community College District was proud to announce that Dr. John Hernandez accepted the position for president of Irvine Valley College. Also, I was for the Chancellor's Award for Community Service that was given on June the 9th at 7:30 in the morning. It was a well-deserved award. And finally, I wanted to say that the stadium construction is near completion at Saddleback College. The turf has been installed at the Saddleback College Stadium, and construction remains on schedule to be completed by July 31st. I hope so. Plans are underway for a grand opening in the fall of 2021.
Okay. Trustee Rydell.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm going to be short. I can dovetail everything that was said already. Just for myself, I wanted to congratulate Emily Quinlan, Teacher of the Year for Orange County. What a great award. And Lisa Kennedy Greenberg, all of her time and effort. I'm so pleased that it did not go unnoticed and most appreciated by our community. The college graduations were so cool. Your speech was great, TJ. Everyone, actually all the speeches were wonderful, exceptional. The president's speeches were exceptional. The students, it was good. I actually went through everything to see what students did and if they did what they said when their names came about. I attended several virtual classes from the community college and the league. It was informative and it's a different way to learn. So that's it.
All right, Trustee Jamal.
I would like to congratulate the nearly 9,000 students who were awarded a degree and certificate by IVC and Saddleback College. You are a class that we will remember for a long time. I did enjoy actually doing a short presentation or congratulations to them. I had a lot of fun actually doing that on our own. I wish we were in person, but I enjoyed stopping by both campuses to deliver a short message.
It was great.
Yeah, a little hokey, but I had a good time with it. At the risk of I think it bears repeating, Lisa Kennedy Greenberg, what she did to Title V was truly astonishing. She is really a force of nature, and changing Title V to the benefit of the foundations across the state was really miraculous and well-deserved to receive the Chancellor's Award. I also want to say that I support Black Lives Matter. The issue, what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis was, it was senseless, but it was murder. And I think that our district has a role in affirming the rights and of minorities, and especially the Black community. So I support the Black Lives Matter movement. I do support the right of protests to do so freely and to do it peacefully. And lastly, I think Jim mentioned the stadium. I think there's been significant progress, and Jim, I think it'll be completed in July, though I don't think there's going to be much activity there probably until next year. And I look forward to welcoming Dr. Hernandez to IVC. He'll be a great addition to our team here in South Orange County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the only thing I really need to add, because everything was very well covered. Again, I did enjoy watching the commencements. Trustees, you all did a great job congratulating in the best way we could. And I think that it was as nice a ceremony as we possibly could have done under the situation. As for the award for Lisa Greenberg, if it hasn't been delivered, I am still available to walk that a couple houses down and get that to her. But I see her on a regular basis, and I've been congratulating her every day, and she keeps telling me to stop it. But I will go ahead and then turn it over to student trustee.
Hello. I wanted to congratulate the students graduating from Saddleback and Irvine Valley College. Many of them are going to be transferring to Incredible University, and their legacy lives on. Many of them have associates, and they're going to move on to their professions. I also want to thank the professors who are encouraging students along the way, especially through finals week. And also thank the professors guiding students during this challenging time and helping them through the process when taking online classes.
Excellent. So then do we have our ASIVC or Saddleback?
We don't think that they're on, Trustee Prendergast.
It is summer. I wouldn't be there either. Saddleback College Academic Senate then.
Why don't we come back to him?
All right, let me go to June.
Thank you. Irvine Valley College faculty would also like to thank the faculty for everything they did to finish out the spring semester, all the hard work, and congratulate the students on an extraordinary spring 2020. And we are busy working this summer to prepare for an excellent online fall. And that is all.
All right. Do we get Blake yet? We'll go on to Faculty Association.
Yeah. So Lewis, I'm assuming you're doing it for Faculty Association?
That is correct, and I am here.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
I will be as brief as I possibly can. The Faculty Association has, our new officers have assumed their roles in the Faculty Association, which is what brings me to this meeting as a representative. The Faculty Association is looking forward to working with the district in order to mitigate the effects of the state budgetary crisis and to minimize its effects on our students' education, to make sure that we are able to deliver all of the educational services that our students have come to expect from us. And that's my statement.
We have Amy Hunter.
IVC Classified Senate.
Yes, good evening, Board of Trustees and Chancellor Burke. As I mentioned today, general meeting for our Classified Senate, I thanked the nearly 30 members of our senators and officers and committee members, nearly 200 classified here at IVC who have been very active this year, and we've been very productive even given our stay-at-home through half of the spring. So we have had a lot of great successes this year. Classified leadership training, our Caring Campus initiative, which started in October, and we're still continuing that. We'll have a convocation of our final plan to present in August. We've participated in a lot of the district-wide committees and college committees, so thank you. And I've participated in professional development both on campus and virtually during the spring. We've also participated in a lot of Equity Institute and dialogue this year, and we'll continue to do so next year. And we put on our first Zoom reveal of our classified staff of the year, which was a wonderful thing to do during our time here at home, and much, much more. So thank you so much, and thank you to all our classified.
All right, excellent. Do we have Blake yet?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
How are you?
We're doing great.
Good. I have discovered that I cannot be both in Zoom class and Zoom meeting at the same time. So I
No,
was
you
giving my
cannot.
students a break. They're all on a break now. Monday and Tuesday, I am in 9 hours of Zoom classes each day,
Oh,
but I'm
wow.
glad to be here tonight. Mostly to tell you that the graduates from Saddleback are amazing. So proud to see them in the commencement ceremony. And other than that, I do not have a report for you, being all of 2 weeks into academic senate president role. So,
All right.
thank you.
Then next we have Saddleback Classified Senate.
I'm not seeing anyone on from Saddleback Classified Senate.
All right. Then we have CSEA.
Yes, I have submitted my written reports, and to save time, I will just leave it as that.
All right. POA, I assume, is not on. Board requests for reports, seeing none. We will go to the first of our 3 presentations this evening.
So the first presentation tonight is related to the education master plans for the 2 colleges. This plan flows from the district strategic plan that you approved previously. These plans are specific to the colleges as they have to do with their educational program. So joining us tonight to do the presentation are our consultants from MIG, Daniel Iacofano and Mark Schilling.
Okay, this is Daniel here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I believe we're going to get the presentation up on the screen. I can see it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the board, faculty, classified staff, students, and administrators. It has indeed been an honor and a pleasure working with all of you over the last year and a half to produce the district-wide strategic plan and the educational master plans for both of the 2 colleges. You guys have been a fantastic group of people. A lot of co-creation of the plans is what I attribute here to the success and hopefully the use of these plans moving forward into the future. So on behalf of Mark Sillings and Stephanie Pavone, who are 2 key staff, we really thank you again for all your efforts. Just to give you a quick review, and I only have 10 minutes for the presentation, so we're going to move through these slides real quickly. If we go to the next slide, which is the process chart, just to remind you that we had 3 phases. This was phase 1, starting with the context, where we are, all the data collection. Phase 2 was about building the framework for the strategic plan. And we launched that with a district-wide planning charrette, which was a really great event, very successful, a lot of good energy there, resulting in phase 3, where we actually put the plan together. And that took a good amount of time. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and here we are still moving forward with that. All of this was meant to feed into, as the next slide change indicates, the district-wide facility master plan. And then you can see here the images of the charrette taking place, a lot of the group breakouts and the energy. Now here's where we do say what each of these plans is all about. First of all, we identified the educational needs of the communities of the South Orange County Community College District. We went on to articulate the overall vision for advancing student achievement and success. And then these efforts do guide the development of the college educational programs and support services. And then finally, direction is provided ultimately for facilities, future faculty and staffing, IT systems, and other key planning documents. So these are really the foundational documents for the college district. On the next slide, we talk about the district-wide planning framework. This was a very early on victory in a lot of ways to help the colleges together with the district to understand the relationship of all these plans. And we worked that pretty well. We said that in common, the district with the 2 colleges will work together to create a district-wide strategic plan. And that time frame is essentially the next 5 years. That's about as long as you can go And we know with all the changes and the uncertainties in the world, 5 years is a very long time when you think about it in planning terms. And then the two colleges draw from that district-wide plan their respective strategic plans, and then that leads to the Ed Master plans, the facility plans for both colleges, and all the other associated documents, with the district providing the support services there as indicated by that light turquoise circle, tying it all together. So that's a huge thing, getting everybody to understand the relationship of these planning documents and how we could all benefit by working together and creating them as a team. On the next slide, then we talk about how the EMPs took shape at both Saddleback and Irvine. And throughout the spring of this year, there were drafts, multiple drafts reviewed and discussed by the constituent groups, meaning faculty, classified staff, administrators, and many others. And as we saw in many cases, individual colleges then, they took their own direction. They were able to tailor things and adapt their own mission and vision and value statement, as in the case of Saddleback. And then going on to the next slide, in regards to further work at Saddleback, they took that focus on student equity and success and achievement as a major component, essentially saying we're going to adopt the district-wide strategic plan as a framework for this college, with a lot of support and focus on individual program and unit planning, with technology innovation to provide constructional continuity all the way through this COVID pandemic situation. On the next slide, we talk about Irvine, and they also took the inspiration from the strategic plan of the district that we created together, with a strong focus on student equity and success right there at the center, concentrating on the issues of educational opportunity and equity for all students. And again, promoting the remote learning environment, the fact that we will need to adjust to statewide changes and reductions in budgeting and funding for the colleges in general across the whole state, while still planning for the professional development of our classified staff and faculty and potential enrollment increases despite these uncertainties out there, planning for the reopening as well. Going on from there, we'd like to start this planning process as we did here with this notion of Louis Pasteur, who said, we can't really know the future, but we can be prepared for it. We cannot predict. And certainly recent months here would give more credence to this than ever before. But what I found very encouraging and very exciting, as going on to the next slide, that in fact, the district, through this process, became very well positioned to succeed in this post-pandemic world. And that's primarily because of the strong focus on student equity, achievement, and success for all students. There were some very ambitious goals, objectives, and actual performance targets set with that in mind. And that was a pretty strong statement, very bold and forward-looking, which is certainly now the issue of the times when it comes to responding to the economic downturn, the need to engage all students to create a more inclusive educational process, and ultimately a more inclusive economy for all of our community members. On the next slide, we were asked to look at the pandemic and say, how does this change any of this planning work? So we looked at these 6 questions, which we'll now review with you one by one. So on the next slide, we say, how will this potentially impact student enrollment? Now, there's some recent studies that have come out to further affirm that when there are downturns, such as the one we're experiencing now due to the shutdown and the pandemic effects, we can expect more of the traditional college age going students, 18 to 21 and so forth, to look at college as a logical opportunity when they graduate from high school instead of going right into the workforce, because a lot of jobs simply aren't there. They're not available. So the best way to use your time at this point is really to go to college to earn those degrees and certificates, which we also know from research will increase the lifetime income potential for anybody who does increase their education through college and on to other forms of higher education. We would also note that from the additional slides going on, if you click ahead, please, that in fact the data for age and ethnicity show that the traditional age students do constitute large percentages there, as you can see at Irvine and at Saddleback. And on the next slide, it does indicate a trend just from 2013 to 2017 of the gradual shifting from percentage of white students to non-white students. So the non-white student population at both colleges is definitely increasing. And to the extent we can continue to make our college campuses welcoming and inviting to students of all backgrounds, ethnicities, races, and colors, we're going to be doing our community in South Orange County a great service. On to the next slide. So what will be the impact on student equity, success, and closing this very well documented achievement gap? We can say that as nonprofit public institutions, relative to the private schools and private institutions out there competing for the same students, we can say our focus is solely on student success and achievement. And we can place even greater emphasis on our peer learning groups, which we know, again, through research, has a beneficial effect on student outcomes and achievement. The support services that you offer cannot compare. I should say the private for-profit institutions cannot compare with what you as a district offers in the form of peer learning groups support. The value of the high value community college course education compared to any other institution is well known. This is the best value on planet Earth in terms of higher education. I don't think that's a hyperbolic statement. Going on to the next slide. And we know from what you just described from the graduation events and activities, the bright faces that are moving into the future, I think we're well positioned here. Now, as far as what we teach, the actual programs, that's going to be the hardest thing to really figure out. We know that the job and employment situation is in a state of flux. We could safely say that for the time being, hospitality and tourism will be difficult areas in the economy. But at the same time, we know there's going to be continued focus on technology, on cybersecurity, on logistics that has to do with moving goods and services and storage of those facilities. And then also grocery stores have been increasingly gaining in market share. So there's a lot of opportunities in those kind of programs that I think we can safely predict will continue to grow. Also, in terms of all the general business skills and activities, math, science, all of those courses will continue to be very important. Going on to the next slide. And then beyond from there, that's what we're competing against there, the virus. But as was pointed out, you're moving forward very successfully despite some of these added headwinds. So what's the effect of COVID-19 on instructional delivery? Well, again, from our point of view, from all the different colleges and districts we've worked with throughout the state over the last 20 plus years, you are in a great position with your demonstrated success and leadership with online education and hybrid instruction. And the curves that are associated with these success rates are pretty telling in this regard. And we think here again, you're well positioned. But you also have the in-person classroom experience, which at some point will come into play despite these shutdowns and the social distancing. And there's still going to be a need for that personal connection that students have when they visit the campus and interact with faculty and staff and students, their peer groups. That's also proven to be extremely important for future student success. Next slide. And then this just illustrates those different modes of instruction, online, in classroom. Next. So leading right into facilities. We think that the value of a physical campus will still be there as it would be combined with online programs. But if ever there was a rationale for highly flexible classroom space, we have it now. And so the way in which the future campus design is going to head more and more in that direction. We also suggest that there could be issues and opportunities such as off-campus leasing of classroom space so as not to incur large costs in the short or medium term, because facilities are a big ticket item. We think that campus design that is showing up in offices and other places of work across the state of California and elsewhere in the country will provide some clues on these different design frameworks. And then lastly, ATEP, which is a very unique asset. And we think by combining that with industry or business partners, there's an opportunity there. As you know, as a board, we've talked about that in some of our previous sessions. The last topic really has to do with funding and how will the COVID-19 affect that. I think we all know that state funding for colleges in the state is in decline and will be hit even harder because of the budget crisis. $54 billion budget shortfall for the state, and that'll roll down to all of our schools throughout the state. So we might at the same time be looking at multiple funding sources. I know that you have not had to rely on local bond programs. Other districts have made good use of it. Perhaps the time is right for a specific type of bond program that could augment the other funding sources. We've talked about international students helping to underwrite the cost of programs that would serve all of our students. And then finally, contract education in partnership with local industries and businesses could also be another opportunity. So then coming into a conclusion here, the California Community Colleges and certainly South Orange County Community College District is well positioned in our view. And I think of it as a opportunity or college of choice. And if we click ahead to the next few slides, we would just highlight the fact that you're nonprofit. You don't have a profit motive. Everything goes toward student success and achievement and closing the equity gap. That's an important message that needs to get out there. Students are realizing this is a great value. Second, the hybrid instructional model. And since you have proven success there, you should tout that near and far to all of the potential students and their parents that this is a great place in this particular pandemic situation. Next, on the third point, we have a physical campus. University of Phoenix, they don't have that. They don't have the learning communities, the points of contact, the so-called third place where students are making lifetime connections with people like the faculty and students and staff who will help them move forward and succeed. And then the ATEP relationship campus there, there's an opportunity to further team and partner with private industry, which itself will need help and assistance to get out of the downturn and into an economic growth period. And that's good news for student career choices and opportunities for getting them more immediate employment. I think that's a major advantage. These are great talking points for the South Orange County Community College District in particular, given your track record. And then so that says to us, the last slide, you are colleges of choice. And that should be a very strong message going forward. Thank you again for your attention here. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Mark is also online for that.
Okay. I have a electronic hand from Marcia Milchiker.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That was very interesting and important. I think that our community college district and community colleges are going to be key to raising our communities out of the recession and almost depression that this pandemic has caused in our communities. And we might need to get additional funding to be able to do this, to be able to get people back to work that are out of work. And I could go through all kinds of examples about people I know that are out of work and industries that are just struggling. So I think we're there. The one question I have, I mean, we should be there. That's where we should be, and that's where we need to be, and that's where we have to keep telling everyone we're the ones to help our communities succeed and turn around the economy. What I want to question is, I know we were doing this educational master plan prior to doing our facilities master plan. How will this educational master plan help us plan our facilities master plan?
Well, so thank you for that question. It's an excellent question. So let's just take one of those program areas that we forecast as a growth area, such as cybersecurity. So then if that's a growth program, we look at the space requirements for that program. Are there specialized labs or equipment or arrangements of classroom space that are necessary in order to teach that at a high level, at a state of the art? So we look at each program, understand the requirements of space and frameworks to house the students that would be attending those programs, the faculty and staff, and the supporting facilities, equipment, and so on that are necessary to teach that. And so in like manner, you go through each of the program areas that are intended or that are expected to grow, let's say digital art and filmmaking, cinematography, using digital means. That's another kind of specialized program which is likely to grow. We see that in the movies. We see that through our television and our entertainment every day. Those are growth fields, and we're next to some of the biggest world leader organizations and companies that produce that digital material. We should be creating those labs and spaces on the campus that would earn the experience, where students can earn the experience they need to compete well in those industries. So that's an example of how we look at each program that determines the kind of things we need to do on the facility side.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Jamal.
So you had raised the issue of for-profits in your presentation. I'm just wondering, as our enrollments seem to tick up a little bit, what's happening with the for-profit enrollments?
You know, I don't have data on that. I would take some time after this meeting to research that a little bit. I don't have a good handle on it. I don't know if Mark, who's online here, does, but we will come back to answer that.
Okay. And then my other question was, you mentioned online education. I'm wondering, given the possibility of Calbright being shut down, do you see that as opportunities for our college and the other colleges to provide that online education?
Yes, I think you should leverage your track record. I think it should be promoted because it's not an easy process. We know that over time, the online success rate for students has steadily increased. That was something we learned very early on as we began our work with the district. I think that's a major opportunity. You need to be entrepreneurial, just like we're teaching our students to be. I think you should go and try and grab that segment.
Thank you.
So you know their hands raised. I do have a quick query. I appreciate that you were asked to kind of make a prediction or assessment of how the current pandemic can affect us. But what I didn't hear is anything about any type of data or numbers we might have or predictions based on the fact that in an economic downturn in general, not just because of the pandemic, we see what is our enrollment effect in that regard? Are we looking for an increase in enrollment? Because I know like it appears that we would, and that a lot of people, if they're having to work from home or doing online education, may opt to use our online program versus going all the way to Michigan or whatever and what have you. So is that something that we would see an increase anyway because of the economic downturn, and now we're going to be doubling that? Or is it counterbalance that we would see a decrease in because of an economic downturn but an increase because of the pandemic.
We think there is reason to believe there will be an increase. I wouldn't give a percentage, but the history shows and recent data shows that as students are now graduating from high school, they are facing a much impaired economy, a job market with over 20 million Americans unemployed. There's going to be high competition. One of the best things those students could do coming out of high school is to increase their educational achievement, getting a 2-year or 4-year degree. There's no question that that's their best strategy at this point in time. That will pay off over their lifetime. We can't say that is what they're going to do, but that is the best choice. And in the past, that is what's happened to many of those traditional college-age going students.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll have a slight pause here while we prepare 4.2, the tentative budget.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, we appreciate the opportunity. Have a good meeting. All right.
Trustee Prendergast, would you like to take the agenda item 6.1?
Oh, yes.
Following that presentation?
Yes, let's do that. So we'll move that to the front. 6.1 is approving the educational master plan. So I'll entertain a motion and a second on that.
I second it.
Well, I haven't had a motion yet.
I'll move it.
Move it.
I move, or unless I'm,
I second it.
Grace, did you get that? I did not.
I tried.
I got a second before a
Yeah.
motion, and I got a motion and then another second. I don't know. All right. So we have a motion and a second. I don't believe we need any more discussion unless I see a hand. I do not. So I guess we'll go ahead and do the vote call.
Trustee Jay.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student Trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Now we'll go back up to 4.2.
Tonight we have the 2021 tentative budget, and Kim McCord is going to do the majority of the presentation. I will pitch in towards the end.
All right, so our agenda is, first we'll cover our board philosophy and budget guidelines. Then we'll go over the tentative budget numbers. We'll review our budget assumptions, our basic aid allocation, budget trends, and the next steps in the budget process. Our tentative budget is our draft budget, and this allows us to start spending money July 1st. It's based on the best information we had at the time we put it together. Our fiscal year end will be ending June 30th, very quickly here. We'll have then our final numbers for our revenue and expense and actual ending balances, and we'll use those to prepare our adopted budget, which will be coming at a later time after the state finalizes their budget. So our board philosophy on budget is to ensure a wise and prudent use of public resources, promote financial strength and stability of the district, and to maximize the educational opportunities for our students. And these are a reminder of our 10 budget development guidelines, which include, of course, a reserve for economic uncertainties, how we establish and maintain those, our policy on deficit financing, how we fund our GASB retiree medical benefits, and how we budget our targets for our full-time equivalent students. So this is an overview of the entire budget of all funds. I'll focus first on that first line. The unrestricted general fund is our operating fund. We're estimating right now an ending or beginning balance for next year, which is this year's ending balance, of $64 million. We have revenues estimated at $302 million, expenses of over $318 million, And the net of those two is a deficit of over 16 million. And that's typically from spending down one-time funds that we get late in the year. And the college is using some of the excess reserves they have, which will leave us with an ending balance of almost 48 million, we're estimating, at the end of 2021. Now, if you look down that surplus deficit, you'll see mostly minuses, and that's because we tend to budget funds that we have, like our capital outlay fund on the 5th line there. You can see it's a deficit of over 300 million, and that's because those funds are all budgeted for our projects that we intend to do. Although we know they won't all get completed next year, they are fully budgeted for those projects. So you'll notice that is consistent. If you look at the very last line, second to last line, sorry, you'll see we have a new fund this year. It's our student representation fee fund that the board approved earlier this year. That's based on AB 1504, that the district is now collecting or charging the students $2 per semester. They have an option to opt out of that fee if they choose not to pay it. But after keeping a 7% administrative fee, one half of those funds will go to the state to support the statewide student group, and the other half we keep at our district for our students to have advocacy opportunities. And the total line there, we had, sorry, Henry, our overall district beginning balance is 535 million. Revenues, you can see, are almost the same, 544 million. Expenditures of 883, with the deficit of 339 million and a projected ending balance of almost 200 million. All right. This slide just kind of re-shows those first two columns to give us the total available funds. So for the unrestricted general fund, that revenue of 302 million, what makes that up, of course, the bulk of it is our property taxes that we collect, and 166.5 million of those funds are how we fund our student-centered funding formula. The other almost 89 million funds our basic aid allocation. Some of the other revenues are local revenues like tuition and fees that we collect from our students. And you can see at the very bottom, we have over $1 billion now. Almost 1.1 billion is our overall operating or overall funds that we have available between all of our funds. So this chart shows how the funds are going to be spent. In our unrestricted general fund, we have 202 million in salaries and benefits, almost 30 million in supplies and services, just 667,000 in capital outlay, and 86 million for payments to students and other. And of course, the bulk of that is the other. It's our transfer of basic aid out of the unrestricted general fund into our capital outlay fund for those projects, and also into the retiree benefit and pension stability funds. You can see the bulk of our expenses occur in the combined general fund, which is 186 million, and the capital outlay fund, which is 445 million, and the overall total being 883 million in expenses. Right, so some of the assumptions that went into building those numbers, it's based on the governor's May revise. As we know, the final state budget will be coming out soon, and then we will incorporate those changes into our adopted budget. The May revise had a 0 COLA for the student-centered funding formula, 0% for growth, and an actual base funding deficit of 8%. And for the first time ever, they actually had language where the basic aid districts, because we don't get that funding from the state, that we had to take that same cut of the base funding deficit from our categorical programs. Some other assumptions are property tax revenue increase year over year is 2.5%. Most of that, of course, is in our secured taxes. And then we use some of our tax revenue to fund some of those items that the state did not include. So we funded a 2.31% COLA. We funded 0.48% growth. And we also funded that base reduction so that our colleges were fully funded within the funding formula. We also backfilled 50% of the deficit that was going to be applied to the categorical programs. So that was 6.5 million, half of that 13 million. That we decided to backfill. And this is a departure from our board policy and administrative reg 3110 because we're not specifically following the funding formula as the state has funded it. And this is based on the board study session that we had earlier. On the expense side, our salary increases that are included have our step-in column and all negotiated increases. The ones listed below, the 2.92 for faculty, 2.25 for classified, and 2.02 for police, those are all the 2021 raises. As you remember, though, we have a 3-year agreement with these units, and the overall percentage, this is the 3rd year of 3 years, was 9.81%. For management, they have 2.5% for 2021 with an overall increase of only 7.5% over the 3 years. The PERS and STIRS rates here are what's built into the budget. We do expect those to be reduced based on the state putting money into both of those funds. So the new rates are reflected there, 20.7 and 16.15 for STIRS. Those will be in the adopted budget. Our health and welfare, we had estimated at 2.5%. We actually just got the final renewals last week, and it's only going to be a 1.4% increase. So again, we are trending really well with our experience for our medical plans. Unemployment insurance is still at 0.05%. That is the statewide rate, but we do get a local experience charge each quarter. So if we have a large number of our employees filing for unemployment, we actually do get a surcharge every quarter. We expect that number to go up quite a bit because of the payments that were made due to the pandemic. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And our workers' compensation rate is estimated at 1.35%. Final assumptions, of course, we have our 7.5% reserve for economic uncertainties. That's 14.5 million. We have our 20% reserve for our unrealized tax collections. That's with our basic aid calculation is 17.7 million. And a couple of other funding notes. We do still get our funds for the Educational Protection Act. It's estimated at 2.65 million. That's based on $100 per FTES. And those funds are used and budgeted for part-time faculty salaries and benefits. So we report those on our website every year as well as to the state. And then our lottery revenue is estimated at 4.3 million. That's pretty consistent with what we've had this year. This page is a summary of the categorical cuts that we discussed at the board study session. The first column, the 2021 allocation, includes the specific budget cuts. There was 10% to the adult education block grant, 58% to the strong workforce program, and 15% to the student equity and achievement. So that first column already included those specific program cuts. The next column is the 13 million cut we would need to cover that base deficit. So we proportionally split it among all of those programs. And then we agreed to, again, backfill that with some property tax funds. So the 6.5 million added back gives us a net funding for all these programs of 20.7 million. So it's a $6.5 million reduction, which is very difficult considering most of these programs help our very vulnerable students. Just a quick summary where we are with our basic aid funds. Our estimated ending balance right now is 23 million. That will change when we get our final taxes at the end of the year, probably will go up slightly. The receipts we're estimating with that 2.5% increase is 88.6 million for a total of 111.7 million. We have the contingency reserve, as I mentioned, 17.7 million for allocated funds of 94 million. These are the categories that we allocated the basic aid. The major changes since the last time you saw this is the second line that has the categorical program backfill of 6.5 million. And the fourth line for the capital projects in the EFMP. That was reduced by 8.2 million, partially to fund the 6.5 million for categorical backfill, and also to take into account a reduction in property tax estimates that we had earlier. But all of the other categories remain the same from what you approved back in April. And Anne-Marie is now going to talk about the trends.
All right, so some of the budget trends that we are watching closely, obviously, are the costs related to COVID-19. So we're tracking those, and we are applying everything we can to the CARES Act, but as we know, not everything can be applied to that, so we are still tracking those. The forced unemployment, as we know throughout the nation, we are now officially in a recession. And I say now officially, even though it's June, I think they said that the official recession started back in February. So it just kind of lags for the economists to come up and tell us that. And it's likely it's going to take several years to recover from that. So, you know, I would say that the budget that we saw in 1920 is probably going to be the best budget that we will have for the next few years. Although, I'll get to that in a moment when we get to next steps. You know, the other thing, our property tax estimates have come down. We mentioned that at the study session. Pre-COVID-19, we were estimating a 3.9% in our property taxes. Now we're estimating 2.5%, which is significantly below what our property taxes have been increasing in the past several years. You know, the last 4 years, since 16-17, our property taxes have gone up on average just above 6% each of those last 4 years. The state provided COLA and growth, as we know, are not sufficient to cover the increase in our personnel costs due to the step and column that is associated with those, as well as the increases that have been happening with our PERS and STRS and health and welfare. Which leads right directly into our personnel costs, where that makes up an average of 89.1% of the total budget. If we exclude the categorical backfill, the reserves, and the basic aid funds. So that is a slight increase over where we were last year. Moving to the PERS and STRS, which we've mentioned a lot. And I think the reason that we continue to mention it is you can kind of see there on the bottom line that the combined annual increase when our rates really started escalating after 15-16, if you look all the way to the right, you see a $13.4 million figure. When we get to 24-25, that's what we're estimating that we're going to have to backfill and take out of basic aid just to keep us at the level that we were at 15-16. So that's $13 million annually. Already this year, through our 2021 budget, we're estimating that that's a $10 million increase. And that was one of the reasons that we took the change to the board with our board policy 3110 to be able to start adding money back into our pension stabilization trust fund. So we've added $5 million in there this year. And we'll need to continue adding the funds in there so that we can continue to provide this backfill to the colleges. Moving to the May revise. We saw this during the study session, but I just thought it would be a good reminder of where the governor's budget was. So here, on the left column under governor, that's where you see that the governor was proposing the reductions. Word is coming out of Sacramento today that they have come to a deal and there are no cuts to community colleges. I think higher education has fared the best out of anybody else. So we don't have all the specifics yet, but it's going to look more like this column to where really, rather than having cuts, we're going to have cash deferrals. And, well, a change from this, though, is that Calbright is not going to be eliminated. So Calbright College is going to continue forward. So I don't know what that's going to do to, say, this $75 million block grant, because that was coming from Calbright. And so since Calbright is not being eliminated, my guess is we will not have this block grant, but I don't have those details yet. I think, you know, the best news is that we don't have cuts. So all those categorical cuts that Kim just told us about, we get to back all those off and put that $6.5 million back towards IVC Student Services Center. So we will be doing that in the adopted budget. And then, oh, there we go. So we're going to continue to monitor the state budget. You know, I have to get more news on what this deal that has just been announced is, and whether or not we're still projecting that there will be another budget in August. I have a feeling that there may be. It's all going to depend on what the revenues look like after July 15th, if we're going to have another budget, but we will monitor that closely. You know, with the cash deferrals, we're going to monitor that, but fortunately, with us being basic aid, it's not too much of a hardship for us. And then we're closely watching our enrollment trends, and I know there was a question to this earlier, and so we are watching that. I think if we look at the FTES where we are on our trends daily, we're about flat for fall based on enrollments right now, but that's still really early in the enrollment process. So I wouldn't count on anything there. And then, you know, finally, we're going to be doing our year-end closing after June 30th so that we can bring you the adopted budget to the board at the September meeting. So with that, I will open it up to questions, and I see Trustee Jamal does have a question.
Yes. I have a few. I'll ask a couple, and then I'll let the others ask, and if mine's not asked, then I'll come back to it. Thank you both for the presentation. So on Anne-Marie, I guess since I asked Calbright a few minutes ago, and you just brought it up, I have to, I'll come back again. So the new proposal is that it's Calbright will be fully funded at the 75 million. Is that what I saw?
Well, where that 75 million was, there was one-time money that was provided to Calbright as startup costs. And so that was 2 years ago in the 18-19 budget when Calbright first came about. And they obviously haven't spent all that. So that's carryover money for them. Their ongoing operating budget is $20 million. So that is continuing. I don't know if part of the agreement to keep Calbright alive means that some of that money goes back, or if Calbright gets to keep all the money. That's part of the details we don't know yet. All I know is Calbright lives.
Okay. Well, we think they're going to live based on this.
Well, that's the word I'm getting from Sacramento, based upon the agreement that was made between the legislature and the governor.
Okay. So you mentioned, and we've heard this before, personnel costs are approximately 89% of our total budget.
Mm-hmm.
Of what number are you using for the total budget?
So that is the unrestricted general fund, and it's not including any of the transfers out or, you know, reserves or anything like that. So
when we say 89% of the total budget, what do we mean?
we're meaning of the unrestricted general fund budget.
Which is, I forgot, what is it again?
The total unrestricted general fund budget is right here. So here's the expenditures. So 319 million in expenditures. But then if you look at the beginning balance plus the revenues, it's 366 million.
Okay. So then I had, and I'll turn it over to others. Mine, other questions not asked. So that gets back to the, I guess, basic question I have, and that is, when we're in the community, and I get asked this question a lot, and I'm sure other trustees do, they ask me what our total budget is. And I I see figures like $1 billion in this presentation. That's not how I construe our budget to be. What is our total budget if in terms of our revenues for, let's say, this past fiscal year and going forward? Our total budget is not $1 billion.
So, the way I look at it, I look at the total amount that we have budgeted to spend when I say total budget. And so that's this $883 million. If you want what our total operating budget is, it would be this $318.6 million.
Okay, that's the number then.
Yeah, so it's a difference between total operating budget and total budget. But, we have in the capital outlay fund $444 million that we're using on facilities and technology and,
I know,
all of that.
But Anne-Marie, I think we have to be careful. I'm just, when I saw the budget presentation, and like I said, I'm in the community. I know others are. You probably are. When you're asked the question of what is the budget for the South Orange County Community College District, the answer is not $1 billion. I mean, I think what they're asking about is the operating budget for our district.
Yeah, and I usually, when people ask me that, I will usually start off with, well, everything, all of my restricted dollars and all of my, facilities dollars, I say 883. I said, but my true operating budget is 318 million.
Okay.
That's kind of how I answer it when I get asked.
All right, I'll turn it over to the others for now. Thank you.
All right, Trustee Rydell.
Yes, Anne-Marie, I added up some of the numbers when I was reviewing this today, and you say that it's $318 million for our operating budget, but the general fund is 434 million. So the 318 million comes from the general fund?
So the 434 million that you're talking about, that is unrestricted and restricted general fund. So that's this number right here, if you can see it on the screen. And that is our beginning fund balance plus our revenues. So when I was saying $318 million operating, that's our expenditures. So here, the unrestricted general fund is 318. The restricted general fund is about 68. So combined, our general fund budget is 387 million.
Okay, I just found, okay, I'm just off a couple million here. Because somewhere I wrote down it was 434, but that's the combination. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the combination of revenues and beginning fund balances, not expenditures.
Okay. And then what is the 883 million expenditures?
So the 883 million, that's this slide here, and you see we have 13 different funds that we operate. And so 387 million is total general fund. The other big one is our cap outlay fund at 444.6 million. And then that has our student financial aid. So here's the total down here, 883.
Okay, so when we say 1 billion, 1.1 billion, we're talking about our reserve included in that, right?
Yeah, reserves and revenues. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I understand better now. A lot of money.
Yes, it is.
A lot of numbers. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Trustee Lang.
Yes, I'm certainly heartened somewhat by the fact, or by the comment that you made, Vice Chancellor Gable, about the budget leaning more towards the joint legislature proposal versus the governor's proposal. I'm still, I guess, want to understand a little bit better about how the cash deferrals, the largest part of which looks like it's going to hit in 2021, I think you made a comment earlier that you didn't think that we would be that impacted because of the fact that we're basic aid district. And I guess I want to be clear that under the joint legislature proposal, they don't include the same sort of punitive provisions that the governor's budget does relative to basic aid districts.
So I don't have confirmation if that language is going to be changed in education code yet. I do know that there aren't any cuts to community colleges. So if there are not any cuts to community colleges, then they can't cut the basic aid districts because it was tied. So in the proposed language by the governor, our cuts were tied to cuts to all other districts. So if there are no cuts to the other districts, there is no cut to us. And I was told today from a very good source that my dream came true and I have no cuts. So I'm going to believe that source. When I say that cash deferrals have little impact to us, we don't get state apportionment except for our EPA funds and our full-time faculty funds, you know, and so those two combined are less than $6 million. So that's the most that they could defer in cash to us. Because when they're deferring cash, they're only deferring the unrestricted general fund dollars that come through state apportionment, and they're not deferring any of the categorical or grant funding that we get from the state. So that's why this is the best possible budget for us, in that we're not going to have a cash flow problem because we don't rely on the state for our cash. It primarily comes from our property taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any clarity at all at this point about how California in general is going to be affected by the federal allocation of dollars to various states?
Not to my knowledge. I have not seen anything on that. I think a lot of what both the governor and the joint legislature were hoping for is more money coming from the HEROES Act. And that's what this note here is that if the HEROES Act is signed and that additional federal funds come in, then almost $740 million of this $1.1 billion deferral will go away.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Trustee Milchker.
Actually, my questions were the same questions as Trustee Lang's questions. I know that I want to actually thank Anne Marie, Vice Chancellor Gable, for putting on the budget workshop for the trustees. It was very, very helpful, and certainly I'm very pleased that we're leaning towards the legislator's budget and not the governor's budget right now. And I'm very pleased at your response saying that that they won't make the cuts to the basic aid district, the funds we get for our categorical funding. Because I remember when I was listening to the trustee weekly webinar and they said they want to cut the basic aid districts so that we could share the pain of everybody else. I'm going, oh my God, I'm already in enough pain. I don't need more pain. But I'm hoping that what you're saying is all accurate and that they won't be giving the basic aid district cuts for the very first time ever, which was kind of a shocker and a bad thing for them to begin doing. So thank you.
Right. Well, you still got to watch and make sure that language isn't changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So I don't see any other hands, so I'll go ahead. I have a question then about, I guess there's good news, bad news, possibly, depending on if you know, did they decide that they're still going to ease the burden on districts for PERS and STIRS rates?
Well, that was in both the governor's and the joint legislature's proposal. So I haven't heard specifically, but we were all thinking that that would stay in there since it was in both of their proposals already.
Okay, so that's good for us, and that's a little bit less that we have to pay out.
Correct.
And keep our, all right, so very good. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah, that was, we calculated that at about a $2.5 million savings for us.
Is it then something we would want to decrease how much we're putting into the retiree protection fund to help?
I wouldn't think so, because if you remember, go back to this slide here, we're going to need $13.4 million on an annual basis.
Okay.
And, through 2021, these numbers here are about $9.5 million, and we only put $5 million in. So we are going to be eroding the balance that we have in there. So we need to try to get more money in there, and eventually we're going to need to make sure that we have $13.4 million each year, 4 years from now.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other hands, I think.
I have a question. So I just communicated back. I thought it'd be raised, but no one else raised the issue, so I will. And I saw on an earlier slide the management increases for 2.5%. And I asked Kathleen about this today, because I don't recall approving that, but apparently we did. And can you explain when this was approved and who is covered by this increase?
It was approved in August of 2018. It was item 6.15 on your agenda to cover through all 3 years of the cycle.
And if you recall, we went out with management first to try to say that this is what we think we have available. And we were, kind of estimating what COLA was, and we were trying to come in just a little bit lower than COLA at the time of what the projected COLAs were back in 2018. So that was why we did the 2.5% for each of the 3 years. But, in actuality, when we did that in August, it didn't become effective until October. So the first year.
So this I mean for 18-19?
That was for 18-19. So in 18-19, we got, it was a 2.5% increase to the salary schedule, but it didn't go in effect until October. And then in 19-20, we had the 2.5%, and 2021, we had the 2.5%. So that's why over a 3-year period, management got, if you back off the 3 months that weren't paid, it was a 7.39% 3-year deal. Whereas with faculty, classified, and police, all 3 of those were all a 9.81% 3-year deal.
So, all right. So the management side of it, this would be the 3rd year that we approve for 2021.
Yes, and that's the same for the rates that we have here. The faculty at 2.92, classified at 2.25, and police at 2.02. Remember, they were each doing different things in each of the 3 years. Some of them, we made progress towards parity for faculty. On the classified side, we added an additional step. On the POA side, I think we added some years to their retirement. And so that was why you have the different rates in this particular year. But we made sure that all 3 of them received the exact same deal, which was a 9.81% cost over the 3 years. And management's cost over that same 3-year period is 7.39. Yeah. And you asked which managers get that. It's all managers except for the chancellor. So all of our managers are paid off of the salary schedule. The chancellor is not on that salary schedule. So the chancellor has not received a raise in the past 3 years, unlike all the other managers and faculty, classified, and police.
Okay. So in this, I mean, approximately how many of our employees are covered under the management equation here? What are we talking about?
Kim, do you know the number of managers?
I can look it up. It seems like it's just over 100.
Yeah, I was going to say around 110, but that's
Probably
a
pretty-
wag.
Yeah, it's pretty close though.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Oh, if you get the number, that's your estimate is about 100.
Yeah, just a little over 100. I'm sure she'll have it by the time we're done with questions, because I see Trustee Rydell has another question.
Yes, just a minute.
No, you answered that question. But I just wanted to say management did not get the increase that faculty and staff and security got when we talked about COLA, because we had to wait to see if the COLA increase, because that 3, 3, and 3 was decided on the present COLA rate. And then we thought it wasn't going to go up, and it did. And so most people got like a 0.25 or whatever % it was, but management did not get it, correct?
Correct. And we did not increase management salary to equal COLA in any of those years that we increased faculty or classified.
All right.
So the number based on our last actuarial report was 127 managers.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no more hands, we'll go ahead and go to, thank you, Emery. We'll go ahead and go to budget item 6.2. Oh, and Kim, sorry. 6.2 to adopt the approve the tentative budget. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
A motion from Trustee Wright.
I second it.
Second from Trustee Jay. Okay. I assume that all questions and answers and discussions have been had, and seeing no more hands raised,
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. That was great.
I will go ahead and call on Grace to do the vote.
Trustee Jay?
Aye.
Trustee Jamal?
Aye.
Trustee Lang?
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker?
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast?
Aye.
Trustee Rydell?
Aye.
Trustee Wright?
Aye.
Student Trustee Esfandiari?
Aye.
Okay. So then going back up to 4.3, you now have the presentation on guidelines for on-site reopening.
So we wanted to do just a brief presentation to the board of the kinds of guidelines that we look at in trying to make some of the decisions that face us as they relate, at least at this time. I mean, we've used these for making some decisions about summer, but now we're looking at the fall semester and how we're going to move forward given the fact that we're still in the middle of the pandemic. So I'll start with the first slide with the guiding principles that we use in having these discussions. So we start, first of all, by wanting to ensure that our students and our employees remain safe and remain healthy as much as possible. So we look at those factors in deciding whether or not we're reaching a point where we can bring students back in smaller or larger numbers, and then employees as well. The second of these principles is the safety of students and employees' direct contact. So we have to think beyond just our own classrooms and our place of work. we have to think about who our students and our employees are going home to, because as you know, the pandemic affects everybody with whom we come in contact. Third, we look at the continuity of learning with integrity. So we can't really effectively do everything online. So we are looking at what classes we really need to have back in a face-to-face environment, whether it needs to be part of the class or all of the class, how much hands-on work there is associated with it. If it's a lab science or a visual and performing arts class, can we bring students, depending upon where we are with the pandemic as the semester begins, can we bring the students back early in the semester, and then as we get later into the fall, move them into a more online? Or is it going to be the reverse, where we do more online at the beginning and then move back into, and then have some of the direct face-to-face? We want to look at issues of equity, because we know that going completely online affects our students differently depending upon their personal circumstances, whether or not they have appropriate places to study, whether or not they have Wi-Fi available, what they have available in terms of laptops and so forth. So we're looking at it from an equity-minded perspective as well. And then finally, among these guiding principles, we want to make sure that we support the regional economy and the workforce, because that's the world in which we live, and it's an incredibly important part of our mission to make sure that we're supporting the regional economy, which then comes back to us in the form of tax support. So the next slide shows two of the major resources we use, which is the California Public Health Department, and then of course our own Orange County Healthcare Agency. So moving on to the next slide, looking at, so these are the gross numbers for the state, and this goes back to June 15th. So these numbers, of course, are, and then they only reflected the numbers that were through the 14th of June. In terms of the gross numbers statewide, there are still some counties in the far, far north part of the state that don't have any cases. And so their approach to fall instruction will be very different than what we might do in Orange County. What I really wanted to point out on this slide is the 18 to 49-year-olds. Notice there were 81,000, almost 82,000 cases. So that age group seems to really be kind of blowing up at the current time. And of course, that's where a lot of our students, the age that a lot of our students are in. So we want to make sure we keep an eye on that. I read a statistic today that in the last 14 days, California has identified 46,375 cases of COVID-19. So that's almost a third of the total that we had. So the numbers are going up, so we're keeping an eye on that. Three of the things that public health tells us to look at in determining the direction that we're going with the pandemic are the number of cases locally, the hospitalizations, and then where we are with testing. So we want to get into some of the detail with that in Orange County. So if you could go to the next slide. And I'm going to ask Dr. Stern to talk about these next three slides.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. As Dr. Burke said, these are the three data bits that the state uses in its own guidance, that the state recommends for the counties to use in terms of how to go forward, and they're data bits that we're also using in terms of looking at the trend. So the first trend we're looking at is the new case trend. And you can see the new cases each day, and then the trend line is shown in orange as a 7-day trend. So this data and the next two slides are a week old, because we prepared this data so that you would have it for the PowerPoint in advance of the presentation. But what I can tell you is if you look at the y-axis and see that we were at a point of having just over 300 cases, over the last 3 days, Saturday and Sunday each had over 400 cases each. So the trend line moving upward has actually started to move upward more precipitously than is shown on this graph. So that means that the rate of transmission is actually increasing in our county. As Dr. Burke pointed out, overall in the state, we know that the rate of transmission or the rate of disease positive diagnoses is going up. But you may have read today in the LA Times that in LA, they don't think that's real because of what the other two pieces of data show us. So slide. If you look at the next two pieces of data, you can see why this uptick for us is real, even though for LA, it may be due to new testing, higher growths of testing. This slide shows the number of hospitalizations each day in Orange County, and the blue subsegment shows the number of ICU hospitalizations. And again, the dark line at the top is the trend line. So we're looking at this, what we really look at is a 30-day trend line. This trend line is a 7-day, but nevertheless, if you can imagine looking back over 30 days, and if I tell you right now that the trend line for this past week of data not shown here is also upward, you can see that not only are more people getting diagnosed, but more people are being put in the hospital. This means that these new diagnoses are new cases and not just because more people are being tested with asymptomatic cases. This is real growth of disease and it's unique to Orange County. We are number 2 in the state in terms of counties in our rate of growth of new cases, but number 1, LA, does not have the increase in hospitalizations that we do. So this is another very negative sign. Slide. Third and lastly, we look at the number of tests. As I told you for LA, their number of tests has gone up. But as you can see, our testing has gone down. And even though this is missing the last 7 days, those 7 days, I can tell you today, confirm that we have continued to slide downward in overall testing. So we're not looking at an increased number of cases because of increased testing. To the contrary, we're testing less when we should be testing more. As a result, our positive rate is going up, and we know that we should not be moving forward according to the state guideline unless the positivity rate falls below 5%. So we are far from being on the course that we should be, and to be frank, far from the course where we thought we would be by mid-June, where we thought we would be down at containable levels of disease. Dr. Biscuchil.
Thank you, Dr. Stern. So considerations for on-site reopening. These are the things that we are currently looking at, potential health screening and contact tracing and rapid isolation, prevention of transmission, which means things like physical distancing, requirement of face coverings, access to hand washing and hand sanitizer throughout the college, traffic management and learning spaces, how people go into buildings and exit buildings, how they go into restrooms and exit restrooms, and increased cleaning of shared surfaces and decrease of paper exchanges. Return of employees proportionate to return of students, and then training for all employees and some training for students on safety protocols. Next slide, please. Fall scheduling considerations for when we might bring back and why we might bring back some classes, a small number of classes. First consideration is student learning outcomes. They must be met with integrity. Return to campus only if special equipment is needed or external certification requires hands-on lab, or SLOs otherwise require return to a lab or a studio. An example of this is the class we had to bring back this summer from the spring. It was a CPR class, and the students were required to test out, and that test had to be done on site face-to-face. Virtual labs, take-home kits, pick-up, drop-off will replace need for most in-person labs or studio time. There's some non-contact, low-contact athletics may be returning to campus. Both athletic directors have been working on a single plan that will go forward to as a recommendation to the Chancellor's Executive Cabinet that will then be used as a baseline for us looking to return non-contact athletics if certain parameters exist. Technology will be supplied for all students who lack devices and accessories for online learning, and full student supports online. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Stern, because I think the next slide, is the Saddleback.
Although I'm going to jump in for just a minute and make a few comments about athletics. If you've been watching the trends over the weekend with professional sports, You've seen them attempting to reopen their training camps, and many of them are shutting down as we speak because they've been showing up with a tremendous amount of disease among both players and support personnel. In fact, I believe there was one college football team that was going back to practice, and some 28 or 30 of them ended up with the disease. So we're going to have to be very careful and judicious with the return of athletics.
Indeed, Dr. Burke, the football team was Clemson. In the first week, they screened students that came back, and there were 3 positive that had no symptoms. They removed those and self-quarantined them. And the next week, they found that without their knowledge, those 3 had already spread it to over 25 players and trainers on the team. So athletics can be a very dangerous situation for spread of disease. Finally, I wanted to share one thing with you that we're doing that's a little unique, and sometimes good innovations come out of crises. And that is because students learn differently, not all can do online learning well. Having your instructor present at a different time when you're present to do your learning can be frustrating for students. Many of our students lack the self-discipline to be pacing their work day by day. So we're offering many of our classes synchronously, as are many colleges, but we've actually divvied that up in our schedule and labeled it so that students can choose if they want to take scheduled classes with video conference sessions as all of their hours, part of their hours.
Anybody else lose Dr. Stern?
Am I back yet?
Oh, there you are.
Did anybody else lose me, President Prendergast, or just you?
No, I didn't lose him. I didn't lose him.
Your audio is continuous with me.
Great.
Maybe it's my Wi-Fi then.
Happy to talk to you another time, President Prendergast. But the bottom line is this gives students options, and we will hopefully go forward with this and bring some students back. But the vast, vast majority of our students are going to be all online in fall, as we assume at this point. And this gives them some options as to whether they want to take simultaneous video conference sessions or more traditional online classes. And this, I owe a debt of thanks to our faculty who led this effort and the deans and Vice President Vo Kumamoto. This matrix for scheduling has been copied by several other colleges, and it's been a true innovation for us, and we're very proud of it.
So we would close by saying that the State Chancellor's Office convened a committee to make some recommendations regarding our return to campus. That's going through the consultation process now, so it has not been released widely to the field because it's not a finalized document. But Chancellor Oakley did recommend that most of us be online for the fall because of the progression of the pandemic. And while there may be some pockets, again, in the state, in counties that are fairly remote that have very little disease, where they'll be doing a lot more face-to-face. Those of us that are in more urban centers and next to other counties with a lot of disease in them will be much more likely to be doing the majority of our courses online. So, and with that, we'll answer any questions.
I do not have any hands raised.
So
I have one.
Go ahead, Jim.
I don't know that, Jim. Don't see your hand raised on the screen.
Yeah.
I can't.
One of the questions that I have is, what type of classes are you saying for these online synchronous sessions would become? What are some examples of some of those classes?
Certainly, this is President Stern. So among the classes would be almost all the gen eds, Dr. Wright. So okay. Psychology, English, math classes. Not all classes will have this option, but for faculty who want to offer their class that way with synchronous scheduled sessions, they can do it that way. It's identified on the schedule, and that way the students who want those classes can take them that way if they prefer.
What about the sciences with the labs?
So most of the labs we're managing to virtualize, but the lecture portion of the classes for almost all sciences, of course, will be online. And there too, we will see some that will offer the synchronous option and some that can be taught separately. But the beauty here is that the faculty drive this and have the option of offering synchronous sessions, and then the student can identify which classes offer that so that they can find them easily on the schedule.
Good, thank you.
Okay, now I see Trustee Lang.
Yes, just very quickly, I wanted to reiterate a comment that I made in my opening remarks, which is that I think that, first of all, good report. I think that I support the notion of being very circumspect about trying to limit the spread of the disease within our district. And I think it sounds to me like we're taking the right measures in order to see that that happens. So appreciate your efforts.
Trustee Rydell.
Yes, Dr. Stern, have the roadblocks for the nursing program lessened, or is it worse?
I guess it's more of the same, but lessened in terms of not having to start from scratch to lower them again. At this point, Trustee Rydell, we're probably going to offer about 30% sim on ground, simulated training. Another 5% will be by virtual. And then our clinical partners, not one of them has turned us away yet, but it's going to be hard to say where they are a few weeks from now. And some have already said they're welcoming us back, but it will be with smaller class sizes, smaller sections to increase the safety.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick follow-up, TJ. I mean, if you had to estimate, I know we're being flexible here, but I mean, what percentage of our students are going to be online in the fall?
I can speak for Saddleback, and then Acting President Viscachill can speak to IVC if that's okay, Dr. Burke. Again, we don't know if the restrictions are going to be lifted at the state, county, and of course district level, but if they are, our schedule will bring back no more than about 1,000 students total, but it's important to recognize that that would be for very limited periods of time, and we would have no more than about 150 students on campus at any given time.
Wow. Okay.
And for Irvine Valley College, we would have even less than that. Saddleback has a number of courses that have been listed as hybrids for the very purpose of trying to bring those classes back. IVC has much less than that. The majority of our classes are all online classes and will be done through virtual instruction.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I find it very disheartening to see those numbers in our county and how it's going to affect not only our colleges, but the K through 12s and UCI and Fullerton and how, for whatever reason, it was allowed for people to politicize this and make it a movement to prove a point. And it's very, very discouraging and very frustrating having a father who would have been the one that was threatened, and as a son of that father who probably would not have reacted well to those threats. I'm glad we aren't in those times, but this is very disheartening.
Well, and as you know, we also look at the universities around us, and of course the CSU several weeks ago said that they were going to be mostly all online. The UCs held out a little bit longer, but about 2 weeks ago, UC Irvine was the first of the 10 to declare that it was going to be doing most of its undergraduate instruction online. And since that time, in the following week, UCLA announced, and as it is, 7 of the 9 or 10 have said that they're going to be online for the fall.
So back to an earlier.
Major publics are all going online.
Yeah, back to an earlier question I kind of had with the master plan. Do we foresee a larger than expected enrollment from people who are realizing it's not worth spending 4-year tuition to stay at home anyway?
Right.
And can we handle that influx?
I'll let Dr. Stern respond to that.
The best predictor, thank you, Dr. Burke. The best predictor, President Prendergast, would be where are we right now for summer and fall. So summer, which is the best indicator because we've already started it, is up double digits. It's up about 15, 16% in terms of enrollment. Interestingly, it's not more students, it's more students, it's the same number of students taking more classes, which is the exact trend that we see in an economic downturn historically. In economic upturns, we see increasing numbers of part-time students because people are working. And now that they're not working, we're seeing more take more classes. As for the other type of new student that we're seeing, it's that university-bound student that may be coming to us for a year and deferring admission because we're $46 a unit and have been doing online for a long time. We are seeing very high demand in the gen eds that would correspond to the types of classes that those students would be taking with us. And we're expecting a double-digit increase in enrollment for fall, but as was said earlier tonight, it's really too early to tell.
I can speak for IVC as well, that our summer is up. We're up by 428 students, about 5.3%. That's and 15.6% increase in weekly student contact hours. We are seeing a trend that we have 211 fewer students over the age of 59, but 520 more that are 18 to 39 for the summer term. And then for the fall, it's really too soon to tell. We see a head count is up 25% right now, but we're just seeing a registration behavior at IVC that's not typical. Students are registering at or around the time their registration appointments are supposed to occur. So we don't know what to anticipate. We're going to anticipate a modest increase for fall, but again, it's too soon to tell.
So again, the second part of the question is, can we handle that influx?
I can speak for IVC. Dr. Chris McDonald is, who also is president, if you'd like to speak to him, but he's been working on it with instructional council on monitoring what will be like wait lists potentially, because what we decide to do is either increase the class to a higher capacity or make the determination to open a new section. And both of those have, opening a new section has an economic impact, but under the right circumstances, those decisions would be made. So Dr. McDonald is working with the deans pretty closely on monitoring what we would do for the fall, because we're doing that same thing right now in the summer term.
Likewise for us at Saddleback, right now we're already increasing class sections offered when we have a wait list of 50 or more, and we'll move down from there as we reallocate some of the resources from under-enrolled classes to over-enrolled classes, to high demand classes. That said, we are experiencing unusual number of wait lists, including an emeritus, which we never thought would fly online, and in a lot of general ed classes and our CTE classes. And we're dealing with that the best we can. Faculty are overloaded in cases, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank you. Trustee Rydell.
Yes, this question actually is for Anne Marie, and maybe we should have had this presentation before the budget. I'm thinking now, does our budget allow us to grow like this? Because, you know, we have wait lists, et cetera, and I don't like hearing that. So does our budget allow us to grow?
So we did add in just under 0.5% of growth into the budget. So I would say yes, it would allow us to grow.
Meaning we won't see students, well, as President Stern said, there are 30, 40 people on the wait list. That's huge. So does that 0.5% help us?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it will help us.
Okay, okay. All right, good.
Okay. All right. So with that, thank you very much for the presentation. And we'll move on to the...
May I suggest, Trustee Prendergast, that you may want to take a motion to extend the meeting beyond 9 o'clock since it's 8:40.
So
and
moved.
We might want to take a 5-minute break.
Second.
I was having faith in my colleagues that we could get through the last part very quickly, but I guess I'm outvoted. All right, so we have a motion and a second to extend the meeting until
10 o'clock.
Ugh.
Well, until doesn't mean we have to go till 10.
Until 10 o'clock. And in addition, a break of
Close, in my view. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
All right.
What's
so
a break?
We have a motion and a second to extend the meeting to 10 o'clock, including a 10-minute break at the conclusion of the vote on this item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
And student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
It looks like we have all trustees back. Trustee Prendergast?
Okay, yeah, my video is out, so that's weird.
Oh, no.
Anyway, all right, so I guess I'll go ahead and pull 5.2 to have the resolution read out. Do I have any other polls on the consent?
No.
Going once?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, motion from trustee.
I'm sorry, 5.15. I apologize. Can you pull that?
5.15?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion from trustee Lang and a second, I believe, from trustee Milchker for the balance of the consent calendar.
Correct.
All right. Grace, go ahead and call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright. Wright is muted.
According to this, he's muted and no video.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
I guess we'll just call the vote 6-0 with the student trustee. Yes.
Aye.
Oh,
There it is.
Yay.
Okay, thank you.
So let's go ahead and do 5.15, trustee Jamal.
Yeah, I had some exchange today with the chancellor. I just thought it might be appropriate for her to just give a quick update on the situation with BISTIC and IBC and the fire. And then, because it's related to an item in 5.15, and then may want to just foreshadow to the board that we're going to be switching to board docs.
That was in 5.15. So, yes,
Point of order, do we need to take a roll call vote on the consent calendar?
We did.
We just did.
Oh, sorry, okay.
The issue with the district building, so we are working with, it's with SWAC, right? So it is covered, the repairs will be covered by insurance. So we do have a deductible, and they are monitoring the progress on that. Anne-Marie, did you want to add anything to the issue related to the fire in the district building?
No, we're working through, we're finalizing. I think it's almost to where it needs to be, but we're doing the final cleanup. We've done a lot of the replacement of the flooring and some of the walls already, so that's still continuing. It is going to be a covered claim. Our retention, or basically our deductible on that is $5,000. So anything above $5,000 will be reimbursed to us from SWAC. And Dr. Viscatil, I opened it up to you in case you had a comment on it.
So I think that what you encapsulated in where we are with the cost of it, everything else is going very well. It's just taken longer than we expected. Working with different venues to get vendors to get that completely remediated. I do want to thank Davika Chatrian and Jeff Hurlbutt, Director of Facilities, because a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate the work that M&O put into it to help remediate, to alleviate some of the costs to the district and to the insurance carrier. So we're well on our way to get that fully remediated.
Thank you for that.
And then in 6.15, there's also an item related to board docs. So you may be aware that board docs has actually been adopted by most of the community college districts in the state. And what we tried to do working with Granicus was mimic, if you will, what board docs does in facilitating our building the board agenda. and we worked with them over an 18-month period on a product that they call Peak to be able to do what board docs can do. And we've been waiting on them for this 1.5 year period. There's been training of staff, and as it turns out, Granicus just doesn't seem to be able to deliver on the templates that we're looking for to be able to prepare the board agenda using Granicus. So we have decided to move forward with getting board docs, to use board docs to build the agenda. Because board docs is structured differently than Granicus, it will necessitate that we revise the way the board agenda appears. But before we do that, we'll do a presentation to the board about board docs and how it's structured to get your input on what that looks like. They tend to build their agendas around things like business services and human resources, and although we have items like that, you know, there may not be the same consent calendar, although I do think they have some consent calendar items. So it'll be a little bit different in the way it appears. We're still retaining Granicus on the other end to do the videoing and the minutes and so forth. So we're going to be moving forward really with a two-pronged solution until we find out whether or not board docs mature to the point where it can do on the back end what Granicus can do. Grace, did I?
Yes, that's exactly it.
All right, thank you for that.
Yes. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to
Wait.
pass 5.15. Oh, and I have a question from Trustee Rydell.
Yes, this question is for the Chancellor. What if we're not, what if we don't like it? What if, I mean, I haven't heard a lot about this.
I don't understand.
Yes, because we were trying to work it out so that we could retain just one system. Board docs will actually make the process of putting the board agenda together far more efficient than it currently is. And we're hoping in doing that to reduce mistakes. So
we're hoping to reduce what? We're hoping to reduce what? I didn't hear you.
Mistakes.
Reduce mistakes. She think mistakes.
Oh, mistakes.
Yeah, she's a little far away. She's saying board docs will be easier to put together the agenda, the board agenda. It's an entirely new platform. That's why I just wanted her to raise it with the board because it affects us.
Yeah. I working on the statewide presentation for the trustee webinar that I worked so hard on, I found that most boards and most K-12 boards, school boards and board of trustees do use board docs. It's not perfect. There are some things people don't like, but it seems to be the most widely used platform of community colleges and K-12, and so I'm willing to give it a try to see how it works. But I think the board, as well as the staff, needs training on it to make sure that we can handle it and see how it works and see how we relate to it.
Are we to understand that we have to use it because that's what the state wants us to use?
No, it's not a mandate from the state. It will just make the production of the agenda much more efficient and easier for staff. Because right now it's labor intensive because items have to be reviewed and then revisions have to be made and they're uploaded to a drive. And sometimes what we're finding is the revisions don't always get in there and the older document ends up being in the agenda. And board docs will prevent some of that from happening.
Okay. All right. So again, motion and a second on this item.
So moved.
The motion from Trustee Jamal.
Second.
Second, I think Trustee Wright got into the wire, even though Trustee Lang was louder. So we'll go ahead and vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student Trustee Esfandiari.
All right. So 5.2, I assume I'm referring to the Chancellor for a readout.
Do you want me to just read generally what it is about, or do you want me to read some of the resolve?
You don't have a pre-written summary?
I do.
Oh, let's do that.
So this resolution is submitted to the board, affirming the district's commitment to diversity and respect for all students, employees, and community members, and condemning acts of police brutality, racial profiling, and the use of excessive and militarized force in the wake of George Floyd and others.
Okay. I have a hand raised from Trustee Jamal.
Well, I'm hesitant to even raise this because I support the gist of the resolution. In fact, I was very disappointed in I'll just be honest, in IVC's and the district statement a few weeks ago that didn't address the issue of how George Floyd was killed, and that was through police brutality. That I made my concerns known on the offline to them, that I felt those statements were inadequate. I don't. I think this resolution could use some rewriting, in my opinion. But I will. Our president, the board president, is the one who's going to sign it. So I don't necessarily want to stop that process, but I felt like it could be worded differently. I also feel like if we want to lead by example, I think we should cite how our police conduct themselves on our campuses and to state that and maybe we are an example. And I thought that should have been part of it. I didn't see that in there. And I didn't see in here, support, or maybe it's buried in there about peaceful protests, the protection of the First Amendment, and things like that I think also should be in here. So I felt like, there was a lot of redundancy, and I understand that redundancy to a certain degree, but I feel like it could use a rewrite, and that's my view. But again, I'd like to hear from other board members, and TJ, you're the one that's going to sign it, so I don't know if that you've had a chance to review this in some detail.
I will say that I did have an opportunity to do some edits, and I put forth some suggestions and some concerns, and those seem to have been taken care of. There's some statements in there that didn't have data to back them up, and I asked them to research them to make sure that we were saying something that was true and not something that was being perpetuated by social media. But it looks like they addressed those. I thought in the original it did have something about supporting peaceful protests without violence, and I am not seeing it now.
I didn't see it, and I felt like it was a missing element to it.
I thought it was in the original, but I might be confusing it with something else, but I could have swore that it was in there. It's kind of in there. It says, whereas the South Orange County Community College District Board of Trustees condemns the opportunistic actions of a few lawbreakers during demonstrations, which activists are seeking equal justice under the law, which is a cornerstone of jurisprudence in the United States and what protesters throughout the nation are demanding. And it's kind of implied that we support the peaceful protest, but not the rioting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they just reworded that. I personally am comfortable signing it as is. Trustee Lang?
Yes, I think this is one of those things where we probably could wordsmith this to the point where we'd get a greater level of satisfaction. But sometimes it's important, I think, that these things be done on a timely basis. And so if this had to be held over to the next board meeting, it's not going to have the same impact. I also was a little disappointed that there wasn't a little stronger statement condemning the rioting that was going on. But, again, we did have the one paragraph in there that I think got to that point. Not perfect, but, I support it.
Okay. Okay, so did I get a motion second on this one yet?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
No?
we don't have a record of it.
Yeah, I don't remember getting one.
Okay.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
So I have a motion from trustee Lang and a second from trustee Jamal. All right, so see no other hands raised. We'll go ahead and call the vote.
Trustee Jay?
Aye.
Trustee Jamal?
Aye.
Trustee Lang?
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker?
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast?
Aye.
Trustee Rydell?
Aye.
Trustee Wright?
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari?
Aye.
All right. So that's the remainder of the consent calendar. So we'll move on to 6.3 since we've already done 6.1 and 2. So I have a motion and a second on 6.3.
Move approval.
Let's give it to Dave.
Dave's just louder. All right, Dave has the motion. I guess I'll give trustee Wright the second.
Thank you.
All right. It's a chemistry classroom. Of course, trustee Wright's going to be in there. I still see trustee Jamal and Lang's hands raised from the last item. Is that just because my computer's slow, or I don't know?
I just lowered my hand.
Okay. Okay, there it is. All right. So I guess we'll call the vote.
Trustee Jay?
Aye.
Trustee Jamal?
Aye.
Trustee Lang?
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker?
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast?
Aye.
Trustee Rydell?
Aye.
Trustee Wright?
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari?
Aye.
All right. Next, you have 6.4, Irvine Valley College, Saddleback College, and ATEP Student Housing Visibility Study Agreement. I would like to make a motion on this one.
I want to speak. My hand up. And
Well,
I'll second it.
all right, I have a second from trustee Jamal. All right, trustee Jay, go ahead.
Gary Portner said, and I think you all remember, we're in the education business, not in the housing business. I think it will put our college at risk for lawsuits and things that could happen in dorms. And I'm totally against it. So I want you to know.
Okay. Anybody else? Trustee Lang.
Yes, I think the only question that I had about this is what the thinking was on the part of administration relative to existing sites that are likely to be considered. Are we talking about the SEC apartment buildings, ATEP, some other site? I'd like to get more input about that. But before we even embark on the study.
Do you want me to answer?
I think the study's just looking at the feasibility of doing.
Right, so that Trustee Lang, that's part of what the study is one, we're going to be doing surveys of employees, students, and our surrounding communities to see if they would support a student housing project, and they're also going to be looking at demographics and trends to see if there is a need in this area. And part of the feasibility study would be to say, yes, you need one at the Saddleback campus. No, you don't need one at IVC, or, you know, whatever will come out of the feasibility study.
And you don't need one at Saddleback.
So we've asked them to look at all three of our locations, ATEP, IVC, and Saddleback, and to do the surveys and the analysis that is necessary to see if a student housing endeavor would be supported, if it's needed, and then also to provide like how many beds you would need, what the pricing should be at, you know, all of that information is part of what the study is.
The cost and the risks associated with it, as Trustee Jay mentioned. And, you know, fundamentally whether or not there is a need for it.
Okay. Well, let me just say that while I certainly understand and appreciate Trustee Jay's objections to wanting to go forward, even with the feasibility study, you know, it seems to me that we ought to at least gain a better understanding of all of the things that administration has just mentioned. So I'm going to be supportive of going forward with the feasibility study.
All right, Trustee Rydell.
Yes, I understand Trustee Jay's concern when you look at what was written of what it will do or what the concerns are right away. The last 4 items that are mentioned in the concerns, they concern me too. But I think that all of us need to think about this. Orange County does not have a lot of young people starting their lives here in Orange County with their families. And we had a presentation by a group that talked about student attendance and our population growing or shrinking as the years go on. And it didn't look like it was going to increase. But I strongly believe that if we had housing, and it's not just for the homeless or the people, as we call it, non-academic barriers, but if we had housing available, we will attract more students. And I think that's a great need that we need to think about. And when I liked the chancellor's idea when I spoke with her once, and she said, a company can run this. I don't want to be in the housing business. That's not our goal. That's not our mission. But our mission is to identify the non-academic barriers and bring students to campus. And I'm hoping that this feasibility study will identify that. And I hope a lot of you agree. Thank you.
Trustee Jamal.
At the risk of avoiding being redundant, I just to my dear friend Bobby J, this is a feasibility study, and I think that I do support moving forward to ascertain whether this makes sense. I do appreciate Trustee Lang's point, and I understood your answer to his question to be that this, in terms of we have to give them some guidance in their scope when they're doing the feasibility study. So your guidance is that they are able to look at 3 different locations for housing: Saddleback College campus, Irvine Valley College campus, and the ATEP campus. So they're going to go into this feasibility knowing that those are 3 possible options. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Milchker.
I too understand Trustee Jay's concern because Chancellor Portner was in charge when he was Vice Chancellor up at College of the Redwoods. He was in charge of the housing up there, and he couldn't speak enough about what a horrible job it was and how it was really a nightmare and how it was always bad things going on. so I get it, and I get the way he felt about it, and I actually even kind of bought into it after a while. But I think it's a different time, and once again, I would have to have a company running it rather than having one of our vice chancellors run it, because we're not in the business of, as Trustee Jay said, we're not in the business of running housing or student housing. I also think, so I'm going to be a vote for the feasibility study. I didn't vote for the housing. I'm voting for the feasibility study to see how it's perceived in our community, how much it's going to cost, if it makes sense for us. We certainly don't want to take any funds away from our students. That would be the last thing we want to do. So if it turns out it would take funding away from our students, I wouldn't be for it. I would be very much against it. So, and in addition, I really want to hear how, as Orange Coast College or Coast Community College District opens their student housing, I want to see how they're doing with it, how it's working for them before we go into it. So really study how it works in the different communities across the state. So I'll vote for the feasibility study, and I'm waiting to see what they say prior to voting for having student housing on any of our college campuses or ATIP. Thank you.
Okay. And yeah, I'll just speak to why I made the motion is that I think this is something that is the future for, as Trustee Rydell said, for providing an opportunity for some of our students to be able to attend. I mean, the idea that community colleges only have to be commuter colleges is, in my mind, becoming a little outdated. And as was pointed out as well, that when we were talking to the master plan people and they were telling us about the demographics and how we're going to get those younger students, that, you know, there may be something to the high school graduate that is considering a community college but doesn't want to stay at home, and there isn't a plethora of affordable housing for young people to get out on their own. And so it can't hurt to look into the feasibility of it, in my mind.
Okay, talk me into it.
Wow, awesome.
No, it's a lot to think about. It's a big responsibility.
Oh yeah, but we're a long way from deciding to build housing.
Well, not that long.
I mean,
So.
Granted,
Thanks, Trustee Jay.
we have had the indirect discussion when we were talking about the Saddleback Apartments complex and the possibility of taking it over. And at the time, we were all I'll be the first to say, we were all very resistant to it. But I think there were different dynamics with that than there are here.
I was never swayed by Gary's argument. I'll say that now. Never persuaded me not to pursue it. We may not end up doing it, but I never bought into his argument. I mean, you know, running a college is hard. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, but we do it for the students. It's a lot of work to run a college and to run four-year universities that have housing. But that's the reason why we're doing a feasibility study.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll go ahead and, Trustee Rydell, did you have more?
Yeah, just a quick one. And I'm just going to say it right now for the feasibility study. If we can also ask them to include a thought, if it's agreeable to everyone, that maybe if it's for students, maybe our students can be part, if we plan it, that our students would be part of the input, meaning that they would, for architecture, that they could give some input. If we need it or not, they can give some input. It would be a project for students by students. Oh, that's what I want to say. Bye.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye. You talked me into
Trustee
Wow.
Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Witt. Oh, sorry, Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student Trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right. 6.5. Saddleback College first building at ATEC Architectural Services. A motion and a second, please.
I move, so moved.
Second.
Trustee Jay moves, trustee Wright seconds. Trustee Rydell, is that your hand from the last one?
Yes.
All right, trustee Jamal.
So I think this question is for Dr. Stern to confirm what we think will be going inside this building.
Sure. Nothing has changed since we last presented to you. We're looking at restaurant, hospitality, culinary on one side of the building, logistics, supply chain management, auto tech with a focus on alternative vehicle technology and autonomous vehicles in the other side of the building with gen ed classrooms that could be shared between them. If you're asking Trustee Jamal if COVID changes anything, clearly hospitality is a big question mark right now, but I think we have to maintain a long-term horizon like the building plan for a building of this size. It's a 4 or 5 year plan, and hopefully wherever our economy is, will be recovered by the time this building is built.
Yeah, I was alluding to that. I should have been more direct, but yes, that was part of it. We're about to spend $3 million on this item, so I want to be sure that this is, we're sure-footed on this going forward.
Sure. If I can add one thing, when we talk about hospitality, remember that's mostly gen ed classrooms. It's not a lab per se, unlike culinary. So if we found and wanted to be nimble and found that hospitality was no longer a viable program by the time the building is built, the classrooms would certainly have other uses to support other programs.
Good flexibility. Okay, trustee Lang.
Yes, I think my question probably ought to be directed to Vice Chancellor Gable. I noticed that there was almost a $1.2 million difference between the low and the high bid, but then also noted the footnotes, one of which had indicated a final negotiated fee. So it sounded like there was a rather interesting process by which we selected the firm that we did, and I wanted to understand that a little bit better.
Right, so the process that we follow for all really service agreements such as architects is we send a request for proposals out, and those come in. They are evaluated by a group of employees, and it can range anywhere from 5 to 10 members, and they're all evaluating those proposals independently. And then they submit their scores. Those scores are entered into a spreadsheet and accumulated and added together in order to get the top scores from the paper screening. Based upon those top scores collectively of the group is how they determine who they want to interview. And then they bring the firms in for an interview. And again, they independently score each of the interviews based upon the scoring metrics. And the firm that receives the top score collectively from everyone who was involved in the interview is the one that we recommend for approval. And so once we have a firm that we're recommended for approval, then our executive director of procurement, central services, and risk services, Priya Jerome, then she starts negotiating the price with them. So they have already proposed a price. Priya's goal is to always get them to come down lower than what they've proposed. And so that's why we say final negotiated amount.
So might I ask what the original proposal was?
I will have to let Priya answer that question.
And while she's looking for Priya, I would just note, because I've sat on these, not here in this district, but in other districts, based on the proposal evaluation score, I'm sure you can see that there was sort of a natural break between the 68.3 and then the next group, which dropped into the 64 to 63 range. So that was probably how they, looking at that original proposal evaluation, everyone was in the 70s and then that 68.3.
Right. So it really came down to the top, probably the top three is what I think I'm hearing you say. And yet there was still about an 800,000 difference between first and second. What I guess concerns me a little bit is if everybody had a chance to bid based upon the same dynamics, and I'm not sure that occurred here, which concerns me a little.
Yeah, they all have the chance to bid based upon the same dynamics. And like I said, they all submit their prices. And it's just once we've gone through the interviews and done everything and the committee has made the recommendation of who they want us to enter into the contract with, then Priya Jerome will work with them and say, you know, you've been selected based upon the interview. She works through all the contract language, and then that's when she starts negotiating the price with them. And I think, Priya, are you on the line? Can you answer what their original price was?
Yes, absolutely. In this particular situation, Gensler's price of $2,894,000 is the same as the actual proposed price. However, the negotiation involved us asking them through the interview process, web design, which was the culinary and the food services component, architect and designer. They were not the original firm that came in partnership with Gensler, but through the interview process, we the committee found web design to be the strongest fit for the district. So I had to negotiate with Gensler to switch out their recommended architect for culinary program to web designs, which cost them a little bit more in terms of what the proposal was, but we negotiated it to where they would keep the same price as proposed and negotiate down with web design. So that was the internal negotiations that happened, which did not affect the cost of the proposal as they proposed it. It was the same amount, but they absorbed the additional rate with web design internally through their process.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Trustee Rodell.
Okay, I just heard something that touched a nerve in me, and I'd just like to share it and just understand, President Stern, that it just happened. And I'm thinking, okay, so we have a program now that may not be feasible to offer at ATEP, and with everything that's going on with how life is changing because of this disease, you think we should wait? Oh, I know that sounds awful, but do you think we should wait on this? It's huge. I know I'm throwing a wrench in this, but I have to speak.
We can't wait because we have to have the educational square footage to be able to move forward with the other projects.
Got it. Okay, I mean, I know that 7.6, I would throw ATEP right out the window on page 14. But okay, but I just had to share that. You can understand my concern. I'm sure some of you have that concern too.
I do. I do have that concern. TJ, I understand. I think we all understand that this frees up, our ability to do non-educational things. We don't want to do it only for that reason, and I think that's the point I hear she's raising. I don't want to do this only for that, and I understand there needs to be parity between IVC and Saddleback, and so Saddleback needs a building now. And and there seems to be good reason, but I think the point she's raising is a valid point. And if we should not be doing this only to trigger our ability to get the non-educational space. I mean, what should drive this is the absolute need for this building and to have the programs in it that will advance our students and our colleges. I don't know how well the idea building is doing. I know in the past there was some struggles but I think that's, sorry, I claimed your time, Terry, but I think that was your point.
Yeah, I'm right. And now when we talk about what's happening to education because of the world, okay.
But I think
Just a point that I
Elliot's
needed to share out loud.
I think Elliot's point is well made too, though, that the hospitality culinary isn't going to go away. I mean, it's made change. And if we're on the forefront of that change, that actually serves us better. That if you know,
it's a better way of looking at it.
I just don't see hotels and restaurants disappearing.
They're not disappearing. I don't think that's the issue. I guess, I mean, I'm supportive of doing this. I think Elliot's been clear about his plan, but I mean, has the idea building lived up to what it was supposed to be?
No.
And I think we know the answer to that at this moment in time. So I think I think what she's saying is just, she just wants assurances. This is a huge step. We're at a point of no return. I mean, we're going to spend $3 million on an architect. The horse is out of the barn after tonight. And I'm supportive.
I think one of the other things to consider is that both the culinary and the auto program are currently being served out of the temporary modular facilities that we call the village. So regardless if we put this building at ATEP or leave it on the Saddleback campus, we are going to need to renovate space and build space somewhere specific to both of these programs, because those modular buildings are past their life and we need to remove them.
That's a good point.
May I add one thing to that? So when we talk about autonomous vehicle technology, we don't have the wherewithal in our current facility to do that sort of training. And to piggyback on Anne-Marie's point, it isn't just that we're in a portable, we're in the equivalent of a mobile home. Our one of the strongest culinary programs in the region is sitting in a portable building, and we need to replace it. And we hope to find new partners up in Tustin that we can't quite reach at the far end of South Orange County. So we're hopeful that this will give us the opportunity to do that. But we stand at your direction in terms of the timing of this move. And we hope to prove that it's needed, and the next building will be very well utilized.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So did I have a motion in a second?
Yeah.
It's so long ago. All right. No, it's already been done. It's already been done. All right. Call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye, reluctantly, but aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Witt. I'm sorry, Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student Trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
Okay, 6.6, Master Agreement for IT Consultant Services.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion from Trustee Milchiker, and I don't know who seconded.
Why don't you give that one to Trustee Wright?
All right. Seeing no hands up, guess we can go ahead and call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right, 6.7. Academic employee and classified administrative personnel actions. I believe I have to exit my screen here.
Move approval.
Second.
And trustee Prendergast, we do have a change to that
Okay.
item. I'm gonna allow Kim Wittes to go through those changes with you.
There are two changes. There were two addendums that were left out of the packet. Or other one was an addendum return Dr. Viscachel to the Vice Chancellor of HR, and at the same time returning me to the Executive Director of HR effective on July 30th. They're in there as change of status, but the addendums were not included. So I wanted to make sure that you had that information.
They were in there. They're in there. I read them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on page 11 of 11.
Yeah, the actual addendum itself is not back with contracts. Just on everything.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
And then, wait, trustee Prendergast, Kim, you also need to read out the terms for the two other appointments. All right, so we have an employment agreement for the interim dean of fine arts and media technology at Saddleback College for Dr. Scott Barthing. And it is for the period of time, July 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2020. His salary will be paid at range 22, step 2, which is $163,296 annually. He will receive the commensurate health and welfare benefits of the management team. He will also receive a monthly stipend of $250 to cover personal automobile within Orange County and a monthly allowance of $165 to cover cellular telephone expenses. And then the next one is an agreement for appointment for the interim dean of health sciences and human services at Saddleback College. This is with Dan Predol, and the term is commencing on August 1st, 2020 and ending on December 31st, 2020. The salary will be paid at range 22, step 4, $180,024 annually. Again, he receives the same health and welfare benefits that are commensurate with the management team. He will also receive a monthly stipend of $250 to cover use of personal automobile within Orange County and a monthly allowance of $165 to cover cellular telephone expenses. And then last, we have, I guess Dr. Hernandez is 6.11, correct? That's a whole different.
A different one. Different item.
Okay, I won't read that one out right now. And then, so for Cindy Viscachil returning to her Vice Chancellor of Human Resources position, she will return to her contract that was originally approved in October of 2017. And that, and then Kim Wittes, the Acting Vice Chancellor of Human Resources, will return to her position, Executive Director of Human Resources, at a salary schedule range 23, step 7, effective July 30th, 2020.
Okay.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Again, did I have a motion and a second on this one already?
Yes.
All right, so seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right, 6.8.
So moved.
Second.
Now, am I to understand this is the last canvas?
The last.
No, they have the end date is June 30th, so there may be something that came after the deadline for June. It still came in the month of June. I don't know yet. There may be something on, sorry.
So close, so close.
We're so close.
All right, so seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Nay.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Okay, 6.9, classified personnel actions. Any changes?
No changes.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Oh, lots of seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was, well, I don't know, Grace, I'll let you pick.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right, 6.10, non-bargaining unit personnel actions. This one I do have. You want me to read those out? Or am I supposed to read them out?
I'm not sure there is a readout on 6.10.
So it was
Move
just,
approval.
it was just a
Second.
misattached. Okay. All right, I have a motion from trustee Lang and I think a second from trustee Milchiker.
Jay.
Oh, Jay? Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no hands, we'll go and call the vote.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
Okay, I hate to do this, but apparently Tim was optimistic with 10 o'clock.
I amend my motion to extend the meeting to 10:15.
I second it.
Ugh. All right, go ahead and vote on that one.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Was muted.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
Okay. On to 6.11, employee agreement with Dr. John Hernandez.
Move approval.
I second it.
Motion from trustee Milchiker, second from trustee Jamal. No hands raised. Do we have to read out the terms or no? Okay, go ahead and vote on
Oh,
that.
yes, no, I do need to read it. I thought Kim was, I'm sorry. Okay, so the readout is an agreement for employment of the president for Irvine Valley College with Dr. John Hernandez. The term, it will commence on July 30th of 2020 and ending on June 30th of 2023. The salary is at range 27, step 8, at $279,288 annually. The health and welfare benefits will be commensurate with all other management teams. And in addition, Dr. Hernandez will receive a monthly stipend of $625 to cover use of personal automobile within Orange County. And a monthly allowance of $100 will be provided to cover telephone, internet expenses, and a monthly allowance of $165 will be provided to cover cellular telephone expenses.
All right. Entertain a motion. Oh, we already had the motion. Go ahead and vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Yeah, aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right. 6.12.
Move approval.
Radical provision of motion from trustee Lang, second from trustee Wright. No request to speak. We'll go ahead and vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
1.3 sabbatical leave.
Move
rescind.
approval.
Second.
Motion from trustee Lang, second from trustee Milchiker. Seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and vote on the item.
Trustee Jay.
Aye.
Trustee Jamal.
Aye.
Trustee Lang.
Aye.
Trustee Milchiker.
Aye.
Trustee Prendergast.
Aye.
Trustee Rydell.
Aye.
Trustee Wright.
Aye.
Student trustee Esfandiari.
Aye.
All right, we're on reports. No response to public comments. List of board requested reports. And there. UCT student trustee member election. 2020. We're going to assume we don't have anything for that. 7.4, Saddleback College academic, additional summer 2020 community education programs. Any questions on that? 7.5, Saddleback College CTE board report. Any questions on that? None. 7.6, facility plan status report. 7.7, monthly financial status report. 7.8, act funding monthly.
That is a new report that we will continue until the CARES Act funding has been completely expensed.
Okay. So no questions on that? All right. 7.9, retiree OPEB trust fund. And then now written reports from administration, chancellor. acting president, Irvine Valley College. You guys are just going with your written report as stands?
Yes, those are just our written reports.
All right. So then President Saddleback College, and then that is all for that. Okay. I do have adjourning in memoriam. With great sadness to share that Ken Schmaling, an associate faculty member in our Human Services Department, passed away on June 7th. Human Services Professor Kim Branch Stewart shared that Ken was an outstanding educator who connected with his students on a heart-to-heart level. He taught the foundational concepts to first be human, then be a counselor. Ken started at Saddleback in 1981 in the infancy of the Human Services Department. And during his 31 years at the college, he's enthusiastically taught and mentored a countless number of students in almost every course offered in the program. Ken is described by his colleagues as one of a kind, who often provided humor through his quick and lovable corny jokes. He was always willing to pitch in and teach an extra course, attend a meeting, or do whatever was needed to support the students in the Human Services program. He was an integral member of the Human Services family and will be greatly missed. Ken is survived by his beloved wife, Sue, of 41 years, 5 children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. Also, Pat Lucas, a longtime executive assistant in the Office of the Vice President for Instruction, passed away. Pat retired in 2006 after 34 years of dedicated service at Saddleback College. Counselor Barr, a friend of Pat's, described her as a legend and miracle worker, and Professor Emeritus Bob Cosgrove called her the college's unofficial historian. She worked for multiple vice presidents over the years after serving as a senior administrative assistant in the Division of Social and Behavioral Sciences. She was admired for her humor and ability to keep this place on track, as stated by Doug Barr. Condolences to Pat's family, friends, and colleagues who were fortunate to work with her. With that, bid adieu.